Now let's talk about customers who come to your organization, to your company, and have a complaint. You know, the ones that really want to give you a piece of their mind, let you know that the way you've delivered your service has not lived up to their expectations at all. Well, an example of this I heard about from a very close friend of mine just last week. He was coming back from his honeymoon in Europe with his wife, his new bride. They were flying back over to this part of the world, and a half an hour before landing, a member of the cabin crew came up to his wife, sitting next to him, and said, "Where do you want your cake?" She said, she was a little flustered and said, "What do you mean, where do you want a cake?" She said, "Your honeymoon cake. Where do you want your honeymoon cake?" And she said, "You mean you have a cake for a honeymoon on board and you want to give it to us now? How'd you know it was our honeymoon?" And the cabin crew attendant said, "Well, you know, it must have been put into your reservation record by your travel agent. Now, where do you want your cake? Do you want to eat it now or do you want to take it with you?" And of course, the plane was already landing, and she said, "You know, there's only 30... Well, never mind, you keep the cake." And not only did she say, "I don't want the cake," but, you know, she got a bit upset. I mean, after all, here it was her honeymoon, and they'd flown already for 11 and a half hours, and in the last 30 minutes, the cabin crew comes up and says, "Where do you want your cake?" Well, she got very, very upset. And my friend got pretty upset, too, because, I mean, here it was, his honeymoon, and the last impression after the 2-week trip was, you know, this upset caused by the cabin crew. You know, last impressions are lasting impressions, and this is not the last impression that he wanted his wife to have from a beautiful honeymoon in Europe. So he got back home. And he said, "Look, I'm going to give this airline a piece of my mind. I mean, they've really messed up, and they should know that they've messed up." And he picked up his pen, and with fire coming out of his ears and poison flowing out of his pen, he sat down to write them a nasty letter. And he said, "Look, customer affairs, you guys have really, really messed up. And if you had your wits about you, if you were an airline worth half your salt, you know, you'd know that the least you should do is say hello and congratulations to people at the beginning of the flight, not at the end of the flight. And you should at least get other people rather than just one cabin crew attendant involved. Maybe you should even have your pilot get off his fat and come on out into the aisle and say congratulations." Huh. And he put the pen down and he mailed off his letter to customer affairs. Now, on the other hand, maybe he waited a week. Maybe he calmed down a little bit. Maybe his wife calmed down too. And he picked up his pen and to write to customer affairs, and he said, "Dear customer affairs, I fly very regularly. You're one of the airlines that I fly. I recently came back on my honeymoon, and, well, you guys didn't do as good a job as you really should. Let me make a suggestion. The next time somebody has a honeymoon on board one of your flights, why not make the announcement to them, the congratulations, at the beginning of the flight, not at the end. And you know what else would be nice? Get more people involved than one cabin crew attendant. In fact, why don't you get the pilot to sign a little card and give it to the honeymooning couple? Wouldn't that be nice?" Now, on the other hand, maybe he'd wait 2 weeks. And the truth about this guy is that he actually likes that airline. He likes them a lot. In fact, he flies them all the time. He's constantly complimenting the airline. He's telling other people all kinds of good stories about the airline. And so maybe by the time 2 weeks went by, he'd pick up his pen and write a completely different letter. "Dear customer affairs, I'm one of your great fans. In fact, I love to fly your airline. Your airline is my favorite airline. I recommend your airline all the time. It's the only airline that I prefer to fly. Recently, I had an interesting experience. I want to share it with you because I'm concerned to help your airline continue to be #1 right at the top of the mark. I tell you what, when somebody comes on board and has a honeymoon, how about if you have the cabin crew make a fuss about it right from the beginning of the flight all the way through to the end? And even more, how about if the pilot were to come out and say, "Hey, congratulations to the honeymooning couple." He might even make a little announcement over the microphone so the whole plane would know. Wouldn't that be a neat idea? Now let me ask you a question. If you were at the customer affairs department of that particular airline, which of these 3 people would make your heart sing? Which of these 3 customers is the one that you would want to respond to? Which one would you like to do something nice for? Which one would you like to pick up the phone and say, "Gosh, thanks so much for your suggestions. That's a really good idea"? Well, sure. I mean, it's the one right up here on top. They already love you. They feel good. They're making you feel good. But wait a minute. Their recommendation was valuable, was worthwhile, helpful for the organization, but didn't these 2 people have basically the same recommendation? They did. But something was very different. What was really different between the three? Is it the suggestion they made, the recommendations? No. It was just their emotion, the amount of emotional charge that they came to you with. It had nothing to do with the value or the quality of the suggestions and recommendations that they were making. In fact, maybe really the only difference is how it feels to you when somebody comes to you in that kind of an angry way with a complaint rather than a suggestion or even a recommendation. Maybe it's not the customer, but maybe it's our own ego on the side of the company that is what's different in responding to these three customers. Now you say, but wait a minute, Ron. I've had experience in customer affairs. Let me tell you about these people. These people aren't as innocent as you say. These are the ones that are always trying to get something for nothing. They're the ones that are trying to really stick it to you. You know, they want a free flight or they want a cash refund or something. You can't take these people seriously. And I say to you now, hold on just one second. Let's take a look at who that kind of character really is.